It's the people who are willing to be mavericks and contrarian. Those are the people who are doing some shit.
You're going to alienate and piss off some people, but you're also going to attract a whole different type of person.
And it is easier said than done. And there's risk to it. You got to ask yourself, is it worth the risk? And then also, how important is this thing to you?
And you don't realize even until you start doing that, how much you just go along with what you're told versus making up our own minds about things, what felt right, what we believed. And then when you start doing that, you realize like, wow, you were under so much more control than you ever realized. So when you start making decisions for yourself and life choices for yourself, and you're not worried about what the congregation thinks or the organization or God or Jesus or anybody else except for you and your household, in so many ways that just changed for us.
Yo, what's good? This is Reuben.
And I'm Sherri.
And we're the FlyDuo, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 344. I am so excited for you all to hear from today's guest, Reuben and Sherri Johnson. And just because I love their bio, I'm going to read it for you word for word, all right? Reuben and Sherri are affectionately known as the FlyDuo. They're partners in life, love, crime, and everything in between, like Method Man and Mary J. They go back like Bell Bottoms and Afro Sheen. After riding together for more than 2 decades, they're more focused and personally invested in cultural impact than ever. They're combining years of expertise developing unapologetic brand creative with an ambitious goal of liberating pleasure and a shared passion for all things sensual, seductive, and erotic. Reuben and Sherri are the co-founders of Fly MediaProductions, an award-winning non-traditional brand agency that is obsessed with de-stigmatizing pleasure. And this is a love story, guys. I want to say that at the core of what you'll hear about Reuben and Sherri's dream driving journey, it's a love story, it's a life story, it's a learning story. It's a coming out of sorts. It's a story of rebirth and refinding yourself and taking a risk on the only life you've ever known, to create something more in line for where you see yourself now and in the future. They're both Jehovah Witnesses for a long time. And you know what leaving this religious organization meant for their own personal and professional lives and all that came out of it. I went into this episode not really understanding this part of their story, but I think it's just so magical and so inspiring and empowering just how much they let in on what it meant to leave the only life you've ever known and to start over and to rebuild, rebrand, and really take a chance on following this dream and passion of yours as individuals and as a couple. There's so much that we talk about in this episode, so I don't want to give everything away, but make sure you listen to the end, because not only do we talk about what it means to no longer dream small, but also what it means to take a chance on yourself, to find out who you truly are and all that comes from that. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, we ask that you make sure you're following us on social. We are Dreams and Drive across the board: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you want to join our email newsletter, The Keys, and get weekly updates delivered right to your inbox, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right, let's hear from Reuben and Sherri.
Yo, what's going on? How you doing, Raina? Thank you so much for having us.
I am really excited to have you guys on. Before the show started, we were trying to figure out, how do we know each other? Where did we first connect online, virtually? And I want to say we think it was somewhere on Twitter, right? Back in the day when Twitter chats were popping, right? I was in one of you guys. I was on your Twitter chat that you guys had, and we've just kind of been connected virtually and online ever since.
It feels like a whole nother lifetime, like forever ago. It's probably less than 10 years, but feels like a whole nother life.
Right. And you guys have probably gone on to just have gone on to do so much other stuff since then and kind of even change what your direction is. So we're excited to get into that. But as I like to start all our podcasts, we got to go back in time, right? There's two of you, so it's going to be fun, right? This is before you both met. I want to know before you both met, right? Before you became the FlyDuo. Let's go back, Sherri, to you as a child, right? Mm-hmm. What was inspiring you as a child growing up?
Well, as far back as I can remember, the most important thing in life to me was to become a mom and a wife. And that happened. So that made me happy. Creatively and like work wise, I was very interested in like hair and makeup and fashion editorials, like in magazines. I was one of those kids who had like all the magazine pictures all over my walls, like wallpapering the walls with the magazine pictures of fashion and clothes and stuff like that. So mostly that's pretty much where my inspiration came from.
And what about you, Reuben? What was the young Reuben like?
The young Reuben was a little nut job. Little Reuben was a lot. He was a handful. Let me see. When I was real little, I was big into animals. Like I loved snakes, reptiles, all that kind of good stuff. When I was probably when you get old enough to realize what fame is, I always wanted to be famous. I didn't know what I wanted to be famous for, but I remember back in the early 80s watching like when they used to show like videos would premiere on regular primetime TV, like ABC, CBS, watching the Michael Jackson video and just going bananas over that. And then I don't remember what the award was when he did the moonwalk for the first time. Mm-hmm. I remember like the whole family was watching. So there's like 10 of us in the room and we're just watching and I'm like, I want to be famous, but the way we grew up, fame wasn't something you were supposed to aspire to. So I took that dream and packed it way deep down. But if I was being honest with myself, I always wanted to be famous. I got fast forward, grow up. I really wanted to be a DJ, party promoter, that kind of thing.
He's a people person.
Yeah, I'm a big ass people person. They feed me. I feed up the energy.
I think it's interesting for us to kind of maybe just start this right here, right now, because I think it does really shape who you guys are and the journey that you both have. So you both grow up Jehovah Witnesses, right?
Yes, okay.
And and there's people who are listening, you may not know this, but I also grew up in the Jehovah Witness faith. My mother was a Jehovah Witness. World. My father wasn't. So if you know, but people you won't know, but that's kind of an odd dynamic, right? It's not the most, looked upon dynamic, but growing up as a witness kid, there's definitely a lot that they shape when it comes to what your future aspirations and what your dreams should be. Could you explain, how do you think religion early on may have or may not have stifled how big you guys were dreaming about your own lives?
Absolutely.
I know for myself, I didn't dream outside of my town.
Where was that?
I grew up in small town in Rhode Island, very small town. So when I dreamed of doing hair, it was at the local hairdresser. That was my big aspiration and goal. I didn't really think much beyond that until I met Reuben, and he was able to dream bigger. He had bigger dreams, and then together we formed bigger dreams. But yeah, it was, in my mind, it was just survive, get by, survival, a job that paid the bills so that you could go to the Kingdom Hall.
Door to door, right?
Yes, door to door. Do your whole dedication stuff. Yep.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that was hard for me to actually overcome that kind of thinking. That small-minded, small world thinking.
Yeah, they keep you in that little local thing. And for me, it's wild because I grew up really strict, uber strict.
Yeah, I wasn't as strict. My mom was kind of just come to meetings, but she didn't force us to go door to door. We knew our Bible, but we didn't she wasn't pressuring us to be super, super religious, but she wanted us to be part of the community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, my dad was a minister in it. He was an elder. So we were mad.
Oh, an elder.
My dad, this is how strict my father was. Outside of the physical punishment, which was really extreme, he took apart the TV because also an engineer. He put a lock on the back of the TV and he kept the key on him. So we couldn't watch TV. We could watch TV. If there was a report or something for school and you had to watch a certain thing, then you'd have to schedule with him, and then he'd let you watch it and then turn it right back off.
The key didn't come off until like shortly after we met.
After we got married. So this is like, that's when they just stuck the key in.
This is real. Like, I heard about these type of things, but I never, my dad. Like, I grew up in more of an urban community. I know. So it didn't seem as like strict and cultish as much, but wow.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. My parents are from the hood. My dad's from the military. He's a big military service. A lot of my family is. But when he moved to New England, because he couldn't, like, he got a work opportunity after he got out the military. This is a long time ago. This is like 60s, 70s, right? So he couldn't get work in what he was doing, engineering, being a black person, a black male in there. Nobody wanted to hire him. So some of the people he was in the service with said, "Yo, we got work up in Boston. Would you be willing to?" So for a minute, he used to commute from down where we were in Jersey, Delaware area up to Boston.
Okay.
And then ultimately that job worked out and he moved the whole family up there. It was a massive culture shock though, because it was completely different there than where we were from. We came out of an all black area, black community. It was very like multicultural, but very black area. Up to where we were in New England, which everybody hears about Boston and the metro up there. And it is what people say. I mean, it's a massive culture shock. So anyway, my parents being very strict, they wanted us to be, good, righteous people and all that. So you're kind of trapped in that, the whole thing from like not going to college and all that. It's funny because there are huge contradictions too. They're big on education, but we couldn't go to college. But the ironic thing is
arguments with my guidance counselor. They're like, "You must." I'm like, "I'm not."
Yeah.
I'm like, it just
and
was
you believe
not
it,
even
right?
on my
and that's
radar.
the thing where you really like internalize that. Like, okay, this is the right way. This is the only way, right? This is the one true religion. The 144,000, and all
of that. So you lose a lot of opportunity. And when my oldest, because there's 8 kids in my family, 4 older, 4 younger. I'm of the younger set. The older set, they had more of a secular upbringing until my parents became Jehovah Witnesses. Then they started putting that on them. So my older brother didn't want to stay one. He was kicked out when he was like 15, 16. I was a little kid when that happened. So it left a huge impression on me. And he was always like, "Okay, I'm going to do right. I'm going to be straight as an arrow because I don't want to be, living on people's couches and all that." But it ended up being a kind of like some good came out of it in that he went on to he made his way. He became a beauty editor, worked at all the big magazines, became a cosmetologist and all that. And so when I was like probably like a preteen, early teen, he used to take me with him to some of the beauty shows he'd go to in Boston at, I don't remember what the place is in Boston called. But anyway, I'd be backstage and seeing him doing his thing, all the models and everyone rushing around and doing this whole big event. And that left an impression on me like, yeah, you can have bigger, and it just so appealed to me, just all the people and
that exposure, like just seeing it, right?
Just everything. Yeah, it was dope. And I was a little kid too. So you know how it is with a little kid, everybody's coming up to you and be like, "Oh, who's this?" Blah, blah, blah. And so it made a huge impression on me. Those kind of experiences like that. So I think it played into me wanting to do big once I got grown and everything.
So how did you guys meet, right? Because I feel like you guys are the FlyDuo, right? So
yeah, almost definitely.
You definitely got to talk about this origin story and just how you realize that you guys were each other's persons, right? Because it doesn't always happen in life to find your person, but it seems like you two really did strike it. Maybe that was a good thing about both being in the organization, right? You met each other.
We used to say that God knew we needed each other. Yeah. And he put us together early in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to tell us? Do you want to start off the story? Or?
Sure. I mean, we had like kind of bumped into each other a few times at different parties. We didn't go to the same congregation. Like we lived like an hour apart, hour or so apart, which might as well been like 3-4 hours as witnesses, So we did bump into each other at a few like house parties and things like that, but never really talked to each other. And then at one of the big conventions at Providence Civic Center, we were walking around. He was flirting with me every time he walked by. How you walk around the circle.
Were you supposed to be flirting, Reuben? Okay.
Oh, I was not.
Unless you wanted to marry. Were you going to marry her?
Yeah, well, you old enough to get married?
We were old enough to get married. So we were making our way around the circle during lunch break or something like that. He was every time he walked by me, he's like flirting with me, like, oh, there she goes talking again. Because back then I was like painfully shy, like painfully shy. And then I don't know when during one of the breaks or the songs or something, we were both walking around at the same time. I walked by him. He had a friend tap me on the shoulder because he had a limp. He had hurt his leg at work or something like that. So rather than chasing me, he had his friend tap me on the shoulder. He's like, hey, he wants to talk to you. So then we started walking around talking, and that was just like, we just hit it off, like immediately we hit it off. And that was like on a weekend. He called me on a Tuesday, and we talked like every day after that. We just immediately connected.
How long ago was this? For context for our listeners, how long?
27 years ago.
27.
Yeah. Okay. 1995.
Yeah, 27. It was right before or right after 4th of July. No, right before 4th of July.
You weren't celebrating it though, because we didn't do holidays.
Yeah, we weren't celebrating. But the reason I remember is because
my sister had just got baptized.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then did you guys know, or I guess, how did you know that you could build a life with each other, right? Because that's something that you have done, right? Like, did you know early on that this was it was gonna work?
Yeah, I knew within the first month I wanted to marry her. Like, I told her within the first month.
Within weeks we were talking about
marriage.
Within
weeks. We got married in 5 months.
Yeah.
So we got married the December of the year we met. We were trying to get married in like September, October. We had all kinds of pushback. And ultimately we said, we're getting married. Because we really wanted to live together. I mean, obviously we wanted to can we curse at all? I should ask that.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll just put a
obviously
warning
we wanted
on the
to fuck
episode.
and all that, but we really wanted to be together, live together, like hang out and all that. Especially because back then there was a long distance call. So we talked constantly, but my phone bills were off the rails.
Oh,
they were so big. Like we'd be like talking 6 hour stretches.
Fall asleep on the phone.
Yep.
Stuff.
But it was all long distance. So
Yeah.
it was like costing me so much money.
Poor Reuben had to pay for everything.
I'd be at work writing her love letters and everything. All the people at work be like, dude, what you doing? You always writing to that girl. You're writing to that same girl.
You know what I like though about, I will say, and I don't know, do you feel like, I think like in our culture now, like love and it's so like, I feel like it's been so commoditized and just like people just don't take true like love as serious as they might have in the past. So do you feel like being religious and being Jehovah Witnesses made you also just take relationships a little bit more seriously, or
That's
not?
That's a good
really?
question. I think at surface level that you're taught that you do, but I don't necessarily think I think it's different. I think you're kind of like, you are told what to do, you do it, and then you're trapped. So like there was so many people trapped in really horrible marriages, and that's not fair to them. But like on the surface, they look like they're taking it seriously because they won't break up because they're not allowed to, but they're both miserable. And then they make a miserable life for each other and a miserable life for their kids and all that. I don't know that it's like, that's a hard question to ask.
No, I was just wondering. It's more so me just being curious. Like, what did it play any part? Because that is very true. I know people who like they would just stay together, but you're like, wait, why are you even with this man, or why are you with this woman? You guys aren't happy. Once you got married, though, did you start thinking about like, did the dreams get bigger for you, Sherri, or was it still just like, I'm just gonna, maybe be you want to be a mom? I know you mentioned that early on, right?
Yep.
Did
and
anything
that happened
change?
right away?
Yeah, right away.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't work. We let me think. I think initially, like we were so obsessed with each other. We just cared about paying our bills and being good Jehovah Witnesses. So we were plotting like how are we going to work so that we could pay our bills, but we could have more free time. So we'd be like, we both work part-time. That equals a full-time job. Like we were just always thinking like that. And like, so that we'd have as much time to just be together as we could. So I think initially we were just thinking about that, paying our bills, and we were young and didn't really have like a plan of how we were going to do that. It was just, there's always a job out there to pay the bills. And it wasn't until I think Reuben got really sick. He grew up with the or was born with the genetic a congenital
disease.
Yeah. But it really played out like right after we got married. Mono was sick. We had to move back in with my parents, and he got on disability like almost right away after that. So like our whole world, what little plan that we did have just flipped completely around, and we had to figure out, okay, what does the future look like now? Because his sickness was playing a bigger part, and I was a brand new mom. So we ended up, I think it was like Jeremy was 4 when we decided to start a business.
Yeah, because I'd always, like, before we got together, I used to work. I always had entrepreneurial like endeavors I was interested in, but I used to work for a construction company where we sealed parking lots and driveways and all that kind of stuff, and did striping and everything. So I would work with them all through the spring, summer, and fall, and then I'd have to find a second job for the winter because you can't do that in the cold weather. And then I did really well there, and I was going to become partners in the business, and we were going to go 50-50. So when Sherri and I had met each other, that was what I was working toward. And then that year was 96 was the year that relationship was solidified, that I was going to be 50% owner. I would do all the work on site, and then the other guy would be doing all sales and all that. We would have made like mad loot, because I made good money when I was doing that. And I was just like, I was a beast. Like people couldn't outwork me. Like I'd be like, it was,
I totally forgot about that. See, like, I have like all these big mental blocks, like of time, and I totally forgot about that. But yeah.
So when I got sick, needless to say, I couldn't do all that, because at the time I'd been working like 3 jobs.
Okay.
But I got mono, I got pneumonia, I got a bunch of things all at one time. It totally threw everything off the rails.
Dream drivers, what does it mean to be Black and unlimited? It means being exactly who you are, to be unlimited in your potential, to be unlimited in your creativity, to be unlimited in your imagination, and to be unlimited in your vision. Throughout the year, join Walmart in amplifying the voices of Black brands and creators, giving them a stage to spotlight their unlimited brilliance. That's Black and Unlimited. Visit walmart.com/Black and Unlimited to learn more. Dream drivers, Walgreens knows you need your medications, but sometimes what you really need is a prescription for more time with your family or friends, or just more time to do what you want on a Saturday afternoon. That's why Walgreens offers same-day RX delivery to where you are. So you can get more than just your meds. You can get your prescription to save time at the pharmacy. And when you have pharmacy questions, which let's face it, we all do, Walgreens will be there for you with a helpful 24/7 pharmacy chat. So when you need to know, which med do I take before bed again? Or, is it safe to have a glass of wine with my prescription? You can ask a Walgreens pharmacy expert that question no matter where you are or what time of day it is. And that gives you more than just answers. It gives you your prescription for peace of mind. Delivery is available on eligible prescriptions only. See details at walgreens.com/prescription delivery.
Yo, if you thought the McCrispy was bussin', hold up. Bacon and Ranch have entered the chat. Say hello to the Bacon Ranch McCrispy. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. At participating McDonald's, limited time only.
And it's a new marriage too. Like you guys were still like newlyweds to have
Very
to be
new.
Experiencing all these challenges. And I'm also assuming you were young. It's not like you were like
young. She was 18 and I was 20.
So you guys were going through all this as basically like teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Like this.
It's wild.
And parenthood, right?
Yeah. Like when I first got sick, they had to bring me to the hospital. The ER, 2 different ERs. And it's so funny because Sherri called my mom. And so my mom, my brother, Sherri, and me, because I was so sick, I was like hallucinating. I didn't know what was going on. So they tried to wake me up so I could talk to like the medical people. And it was wild. This was her first real experience with like what my disease does.
He told me he had a chronic illness, and I was okay with it because I have a chronic illness, but I didn't realize the full extent of what his chronic illness looked like.
And so it's just interesting because I'm like watching from a third person perspective because I'm like kind of like hovering above myself as like she's working with my family to like get me medical treatment. And I'm just kind of like, well, there's that carcass down there just doing what it do.
So was that when you guys realized, all right, so I'm guessing the business stuff didn't pan out and you guys had to kind of figure out what's something that will give you flexibility to kind of.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So long story short, it took a good couple of years for my body to recover from that. It was like an extended thing. So I went back to doing like drafting and stuff because I had done that. I had gone to a vocational school and done CAD.
Is drafting like the stuff that you use to build buildings and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's basically everything. It's from like doing parts for cars and computers.
It's like the blueprint part, right? Like,
okay.
The printouts.
And
you guys both had these like technical design, like you had this like visual design, love of hair, fashion, and you had like the technical, but also the love of design.
Absolutely. I was always a big lover of it. It's funny because the school I was in, the vocational school I was in, I did that for 4 years. So I was certified when I got out. But the teacher I was there, he's like, Reuben, you're great at this, but you really should be doing something either in Hollywood or in sales. He's like, because you're like fucking, he's like, you could sell ice to like somebody in the middle of a snowstorm. He's
what
like,
did you think about that?
I still haven't forgotten it. And it's wild because I'm like, I was afraid to really think about that because as a JW, you can't think about Hollywood and all that. But secretly, I'm like, God damn, I would love to be in Hollywood. Like, I'm like, no, Prince and all, like, sign me up.
Well, listen, now you guys know it's never too late. You never know where FlyDuo is going to come next with all the stuff that you're doing now. How did the business start and what made you go into like the agency? I don't know what you guys were doing in the beginning. Was it always like a creative branding agency?
Well, initially we had a friend of ours who was doing, he did web design. He worked at a big agency in the city. He had been telling us about it, trying to get us into it, but I was still like hung up on wanting to work with my hands and all that stuff. But because of all my health issues, that's when I finally started like listening to what he had to say.
Yeah.
So we started learning about it, go to the library and all of that. We basically educated ourselves and it went to the library. And then we started,
web designers and developers.
Yeah. A friend of ours helped us get a computer because at that point we didn't have one. Yeah. And then we started taking classes at the Small Business Administration. And then they have an arm of theirs called the Small Business Development Center for training new entrepreneurs how to run a business. So we took all the classes they had. Like if they had anything and they said free.
See, that's so dope. Like you guys were so resourceful, right?
We took everything. We went to the business college, took their free stuff. We went to it was like 6 libraries in the local area. We were like, they knew us by like on site, every librarian.
Yeah, back then the educational books and materials that were out there for the web was like very minimal. There was not much, to the point where we were watching some stuff on VHS, just trying to grasp whatever we could learn and get our hands on. Because it wasn't all over the internet like it is today.
And also
have that kind of resource.
And the books were like $50 to $150 at Borders. So we couldn't afford the books. So we'd go to the bookstore. Sherri would watch my back. We'd bring a notebook and I'd start opening the books, reading it and writing notes down. I'd copy all the code samples. And then we got a camera and I'd go and I'd take little pictures and stuff inside the books to get the samples. And we'd go home and then I'd try to piece together everything we learned, try to like learn from that. We were mad hustle, hustle.
Listen, that's so important though. And I feel like it's something that can't be taught, right?
No.
Like there were innate hustlers within you guys, even though growing up in an organization and like kind of having this small mind, there was still this like little, I'm going to question how things have to be done. At least that's what I'm hearing a little bit.
Well, hey, I appreciate it. Yeah. I'll take that. I'll definitely take that. So I think it's always been there.
How did you guys start building the business, right? Because you have a son, you guys, have to actually make this profitable. Were you nervous going in? Like, how was that whole?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know you've been doing this for a long time, so you got to think back.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. So we started like with all those classes and everything. The first site we did a site for my brother, the beauty editor, makeup artist. So we built a whole site for him, and it came out like just phenomenal. He was just, this is amazing. And then all his people he worked with, his agent and all of them, they like loved it. They thought it was amazing. The problem was we didn't have a site for our business. Our business was just in name only, and we didn't have the rest of the business stuff really set up right. So we couldn't really take advantage of other opportunities through there. We got other opportunities, but not all of them could we close them. The other thing that we ran into was because of where we came from, like we were still living in subsidized housing. We were super like low income, like for,
pretty much surviving on disability and the little bits of work that we could get that weren't too much on our physically.
One of the issues was with my medication was so expensive that I couldn't afford it without getting disability to cover the medical. But because of that, I could only have so much income. So I was trapped in a really fucked up situation.
You didn't want to you needed to be in the system a little bit in order to get the benefits that could help you eventually.
Yeah, because that was the only way I could access the medication. It was mad expensive. So I was really kind of stuck in that situation.
Sorry, I was just going to say that kind of kept us small in the business for many, many years. We stayed small, afraid to lose those benefits that he had.
It was really just that medical insurance. Yeah, because I mean, like when I say expensive, I'm talking $100K a month.
Oh, wait, just for the medication, the medication alone. Wow.
So like, that's.
I mean, it made sense then because like if you weren't bringing in $100K,
exactly. So it was mad expensive. So it kept us in a tight spot. So we started another business on the side where we did commercial snow removal, and I did like lawns and shit like that. I would subcontract by different maintenance companies. So they would basically get these contracts at these commercial properties. Then they would bring me in to do part of the work. And that's basically how we got by while we were trying to get the web side of the business right. So we did both at the same time. So there were days where I'd do.
When did things shift, right? And there's always a moment. There's always a thing or a time where like you took the plunge to kind of say, all right, we got to do something has to change here.
I'd say the early 2000s when we said we're going to stop working another job. I ended up just kind of taking a risk. We stopped doing the other job. I went and I worked at another agency because we've been doing work on the side for other agencies as well. And I went and took longer contracts with them. And that set us up better financially. And then we I learned a bunch working at those companies, how they do a lot of what they do, pricing, that kind of stuff, not necessarily the technical aspect, because I already had that dialed in, but like the business side of it. I think that was part of it. And I think when we did the life and we started seeing how we could embrace urban culture in a different way and make it a focal point of the business instead of trying to make an agency that was just like every other agency that would appeal to like white business owners. Because like initially, we
also in 2012, we got the hell out of New England and we came to Georgia.
That made it.
I think that's probably
was that different, just the location change? That's something a lot of people talk about.
Like it was night and day for our business.
Moving to the Atlanta Metro was huge for us. Initially, we got work right away we moved here. I still went and I did contract for other big agencies in the area, which was really dope because I worked for some really big agencies on some big clients, and then did that, and that worked really well. And then came back to our business and we revamped a lot of how we were doing it, and it started working really well. At the same time, somewhere between 2010 and 2015, 16, we had been going through the journey of like our sexuality and all of that. So by the time like 2017 was around, we wanted to make another pivot because of everything we had done there. And that's what brought us into the pleasure side of things. I don't know.
I'm happy we got to this part. I know we talked about, we've been talking just about like getting here, but I'm really interested in that shift, right? Because I can link to it, but you guys have a really good episode where you talk about your journey and just like the things that you had to go through both individually, right? So the question I was going to ask you was there something missing? Like you guys were building this new life, like I'm guessing you guys were at this point maybe still part of the organization, but were you starting to question things, or what was it that you were starting to question? Cartier, Rolex, Gucci, Prada, Jordan, Adidas, Bottega, Veneta. At eBay, it's real or it's getting the fake out. eBay's team of luxury authenticators are making sure you never get faked over again. Watches inspected by watch aficionados, sneakers checked by legit sneakerheads, handbags examined by handbag connoisseurs, and jewelry in the scopes of expert gemologists. These authenticators are leaders in their field with meticulous eyes, making sure your piece arrives as authentic as your style and worthy of your collection. As experts, they know the true difference between a real and a fake. Real carries that rare, distinguished feel, the weight of pure platinum, exquisite scent of Togo leather, the tight stitching on a pair of dunks, the brilliance of real diamonds. So rest assured, your Rolex moves just like a Rolex should, and that colorway on your Jordan Royals will always be on point. The details inspected, the fakes rejected. Ensure your next purchase is the real deal with eBay's authenticity guarantee. Everyone deserves real. Visit ebay.com for terms.
I think one of the biggest things I was questioning was the way the organization has you live your life kept us living really small. And we made choices that kept ourselves at a huge disadvantage purely because the organization said to do things the way that we had to do things. And I had looked at, previous to that, it had been like 10 years of just financial struggle, health problems, loss of friends, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it didn't make any sense. So I started just doing all this secular research on anthropology and sexuality and all of that. And then the stuff with like, the anti-gay requirements in the church, all the anti-sex requirements.
Just weird. I'm like, y'all know y'all doing that in the bedroom. Stuff that they said you're not supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Who's not doing that?
We were the center of gossip.
We were doing it happily, enjoying ourselves until the next talk at the meeting.
Yeah.
And then I would, of course, be like, no, we can't be doing this. I'm feeling guilty.
There's so much shame. And who wants to live their life with like this shame on things that I believe are natural? Like,
absolutely,
I believe sexuality
natural.
is a natural thing. It's a necessary thing to explore. Like, it's part of your being. But yet it was so repressed and
absolutely
shame-filled.
Absolutely. And once I started researching, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we need to realize how much we were suppressing.
And that's when we walked away. I remember telling her like 2010, I think it was, I said, I'm leaving. I'm done with this church. Like, I'm like, number one is a cult and I'm just done. I want you to come with me, but I'm done either way. Like, I'm not going to be with it.
Was that hard for you, Sherri, to hear that?
Yes. Yep. He said something similar. Oh my God. When was it? Like
98, 99.
Yeah. We had been married like 5 years, maybe.
Oh, so 2000 maybe. Yeah. 2000.
He had said something similar to me then. And I bolted. I was out the door. I was like scared to death. Like, nope, this is not going to be my life. La, da, da. But I was only gone a week and I realized, nope, I need Reuben more. So I said to him, I was like, well, whatever you decide, like, I'm married to you. I am committed to you. I love you. I love our relationship. Whatever you decide is what you decide, but I would still want to be with you, So that was like how I was moving forward in my life, is like, we're together. But it scared the hell out of him. And that's what kept him in the religion longer, because he woke up like way, way before me, but he stayed for me. And because I was completely, I don't know what's the way you want to word it?
Brainwashed.
I wasn't brainwashed. I was a totally devout and a believer. And it took a lot for me to start. Like when I look back, I see that there were always cracks, but I didn't pay attention to them. Like, I ignored them in my own beliefs and what I thought was right and wrong, and made stupid decisions, and just based on trying to do the right thing. And then when he came to me the second time, it was like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this. And even if it impacts our relationship, I can't keep doing this with the religion. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But it wasn't until like he started to like look into resources that were outside of the organization's materials that I started to see, oh, okay, there is something different. Like you're onto something. And then the cracks just like split wide open. And I was like, okay. And then once you see the truth and the reality, you can't unsee it. Like there was no going back for me.
What were the biggest changes for you both? Like what changed once you changed, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes definitely sense. I'll let you go first.
I don't know. You go first.
We stopped shunning people that being, compelled to shun, which was a huge change, like family members and stuff. Now we're the ones being shunned. We had been marked as JWs for like 10 years. And so that used to bother us. And then we got to the point where it didn't matter anymore. I think one of the biggest things was being able to like embrace like Black culture in a different way now. And being able to be much more immersed in it in a way I'd always wanted to be, but I always had to like put some sort of distance, because you probably remember all the literature. Whenever there's a bad person, he's always Black. Whenever like they say in
I don't really
not good,
I don't remember seeing it. I was also
you
like,
don't remember?
I mean, I'm trying to think about it now, like in the Watchtower and all this stuff.
It might be because you had your congregation was Black, so you had that like support around you.
Like we weren't thinking about it. Like that was never something that it wasn't like I was looking at it. Like, it was weird. I never noticed that before.
If you ever go back and look at the literature, whenever they're talking about like clothing, apparel, wardrobe, it's always a Black man when they're telling men what not to wear or what not to look like, or like you look like a thug and all this.
And the bad lady always,
or like the hip hop, like like the
exactly.
Yeah,
so like all that stuff creates some weird stuff you got to work through. So leaving and moving through, I was able to work through a lot of that stuff. I felt a lot lighter, like a lot less weight on my shoulders.
Decisions for yourself, and
which was awesome.
And you don't realize even until you start doing that how much you just go along with what you're told. Well, at least for us, we did. Like we just went along with what we were told versus making up our own minds about things, what felt right, what we believed. And then when you start doing that, you realize like, wow, you were under so much more control than you ever realized. So when you start making decisions for yourself and life choices for yourself, and you're not worried about what the congregation thinks or the organization or God or Jesus or anybody else except for you and your household, that is life changing. Like that was in so many ways that just changed.
Yeah. You're like a new person in a way, right?
Absolutely.
Because you had to learn this new Sherri and this new Reuben.
Yes.
Yeah. And you got to get to know yourself too. It's like, it's wild because then you go on a whole journey. I came from a family where like literally you were told to obey every single thing that they told you to do, whether you agreed with it or not, whether you wanted to or not. So it's like to be able to say, not anymore. Then you start realizing how many choices there are to make in life that you're free to make on your own. It's like, I want to do Christmas. Yeah, I can. I want to do my birthday. Yeah, I can. I want to go and watch that movie. Okay, cool. I don't want to watch
fear,
that movie.
without shame. Like, oh my gosh, watching Harry Potter, sneaking it,
Yes.
The sex stuff wasn't one of the things that was immediately changed for us. It was first more so for him because he was more interested in those things before we even left. And again, I was like, just brainwash, follow me, damn rules. So he would do like all the like, what do you want to call it? Like exploration. And like, he would take in all the podcasts and all the literature and stuff. And at first I was mad at him. I was like, you're doing all this stuff. Like, you're trying to change things. And I didn't realize how much was broken, like how much was impacting our relationship. But and when we look back, we always say that's like the only thing we all ever fought about was like
sex issues.
Yeah. And it still wasn't connecting for me that's why he was trying to fix. I was like threatened by the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
But then I saw a change in him. Like I was seeing changes in him as a person, and I was like really happy with it. There just was a lot of things we talk about in our episode. Some of it like that just ultimately came to a crash for us where we felt like we were going in different directions because he was growing really fast in his personal development and I was kind of stagnant. was still afraid, I guess, of growing in that way. And I don't really know why, like what the shame and that, like that whole, like,
it's traumatic. Like you had,
yeah,
I would
yeah.
say it's trauma in a way.
I had
like
so many walls and shame and all that to overcome. So it was like, I just didn't know how to move forward. It was like I was stuck until it came to like, we almost didn't make it as a couple. We were almost like, this is what years after leaving the organization, we almost broke up because we were both free now to be our own people. He was becoming his own person and I had kind of got stuck, you know? So we kind of came back together and it was like, well, neither one of us really wanted to be apart. We were best friends. Like we absolutely love each other. Yeah. We were best friends in the whole world. This is this one freaking thing. So we just like, we're going to find our way. We're going to like explore all the things together and find where we have common ground. And we're going to push and pull each other outside of our comfort zones until and then decide, like, is this meant to be or not? And like, it changed everything. Like, we are happier than we've ever been. Like, and our relationship is just super strong and solid. And like, I don't even, just so many things.
I feel like in a lot of ways.
This could be like a 3-part, 5-part podcast, right?
Man, for real, yeah.
I wonder though, what made you guys shift the business, right? Because you were going through this personal exploration, like this discovery, these epiphany moments for you guys individually, but you could have kept the business as is, right?
Yep.
Was it important for you to also rethink how you guys were approaching it? Or was it just like, maybe there's a space here to explore as well?
Yeah, a lot of people, we've been asked that question multiple times in the past. And I think the way that we look at it is you got to find out the amount of resources of time and energy. We had put a lot of energy into this side. We had energy in the business on this side. And I'm getting older now. Like I'm getting closer to 50 than I am to like 40. So like we saw how much of a positive benefit it was doing for our relationship. And we knew all the people that we had come, that were in the community we walked away from. And we had seen a lot of what they had been through. And by this time, we had met a lot of people like outside, and we started seeing like a lot of other people came out of groups and they had similar issues. We're like, well, we got this amazing skill. We do all this stuff that helps businesses make money. Why can't we find a way to merge the two so that all of our time is going in one direction? So that like when we're doing stuff personally, we're benefiting this area. And then when we're working professionally, we're benefiting the same area. And then
we had also been looking for more purpose in our own work and business.
Yeah.
Because we got into like design and web design and all of that, out of necessity. We got really good at it and we enjoyed it. But then, it's been 20 years. So we were looking for something more than that, like more meaning in the work that we're doing. And it just
like
felt like
evolution
really
too, right?
Yeah.
And it's also interesting because the name FlyDuo, like it kind of makes sense in this space. Like maybe it always was supposed to be like, like I don't know, right? Like, think about
I totally feel you. It's funny because one of our clients, dubbed us the FlyDuo. And so we just ran with it because our company, our agency, our brand agency is Fly MediaProductions.
Yeah.
But like, she's always like, oh, Reuben and Sherri, the FlyDuo. And so like, and then it just kind of like spun off and had a life of its own. And like, we just ran with it. So now it's like when we're doing anything in the pleasure space, we do it under our FlyDuo brand. And when we're doing more like brand work, agency stuff, we do it under the Fly MediaProductions brand. Let's just kind of like two different things. Oh, because I see myself like in the future, like what I would really love to be doing is I would love to at some point being able to segue into doing a lot more with our FlyDuo brand, like talking about, sexuality. I'm like relationships, sexuality, that kind of stuff. And then, our virtual events around sexuality and stuff. It's given me so much life.
Yeah.
Like I love just the brands we work with and all that, but this is just a whole nother life.
That's what you want, right?
Your life can be so much better.
That's what it is. Like it changed our life. I see how it changes other people's life. And I see, especially look at like the culture we live in right now, the way legislation's changing and censorship. I know that a lot of people could use it. and I want to be part of it. So I want to partner with brands and public figures and all that to be able to do more on the virtual side, like events and speaking and podcasting and TV and streaming and all that. That's where ultimately I'd love to see.
And on the agency side, we're just taking all of our 20 years of experience and skill and knowledge and want to help other brands in this space that are doing the work to be out there and change things and just helping them.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you very quickly, just because I know what you guys do now, right? But can you just give us like that brief one-liner of what it is that you guys venture in, what you would describe like the FlyDuo sex project and the other products and the other platforms that you guys now have for our listeners, just so that everyone's on the same page of what it is that you guys do?
Well, Fly MediaProductions is a brand agency. So we help brands in the pleasure space. And the pleasure space is anything really around sexuality, wellness, entertainment, that kind of thing. We help them to fix problems with the brand, to connect with consumers, to promote their products, that kind of stuff. We help with brand strategy. And then FlyDuo and FlyDuo Sex Project, that's just all about talking about sexuality, destigmatizing sexuality and pleasure, and helping to bring the conversation forward. So we talk about things from pornography to sex, relationships, being a sex positive parent, partner, friend.
It started with our journey, and we are going to expand it and bringing in other people to share their stories and things too.
Yeah.
You know what I think is really important for us to talk about is the whole idea of being sex positive and how, like, not saying that you have to be like involved in the culture, but I think if you as a person are just more understanding of your own sexuality, that plays out in so many different areas of your life, like more confidence, like just your own self-esteem. You're not questioning, like, you know how to, like, I don't know. I want to say you're just more in tune with yourself, and that relationship with yourself is probably the most important one that you'll ever have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right with that. And there's so much sex negativity that it's hard not to, if you're not consciously trying to do things to kind of balance that out, it'd be impossible not to absorb some of that negative perspective around sexuality. So you got to do something to, like, you know, kind of like juice yourself up in that way. Because it's just everywhere. I mean, and you look at the legislation, you know, this is bad, attacking drag shows, which are not even about sex. That's just
performance,
about performance and what is the word? Upliftment and being confident and all of that. Like, I love drag. Like, I'm like, damn. But that's, you know, what's funny? I'm going to say this though, because there's a quote, I forget who said it, but when I found out, it blew my mind. Did you know that the Nazis considered jazz the most dangerous thing to Nazism of everything else? They were that afraid of Black culture in jazz music. They considered it the premier threat to Nazism spread around the world. We got some fucking power. Our culture is that fucking powerful.
That's crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah.
What have you guys, like, you know, I can see that.
I say that because that's why I love, like, Black culture. That's why I love sexuality. That's why, like, the LGBT community is so powerful, because these are cultures that are consciously trying to be suppressed by people who want to be authoritarian over other people's lives. And it's like, there's a reason why, because they're threatened by these cultures that are really built up to liberate people. And that's why
Ironically, though, subcultures do rule the world, right? Because look how much sexuality is sold in order to make money. Even like, it's like they like, I don't know how to articulate this, but sex sells, right? But you shouldn't talk about it.
Yes.
You shouldn't, you know, have conversations about it, but you should just consume it privately so that I can make money off of you, but don't talk about it though.
Exactly.
You know? Like,
we're going to allude to it. But you can never acknowledge it on a surface level. The moment you talk about it honestly, overtly up front, that's the moment it's a problem. And be damned if it's one of the groups that they don't want to be in the forefront. Because if it's women talking about women's pleasure, if it's LGBT community folks talking about their own pleasure. If it's like different BIPOC people, we don't want that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And you know what's too,
absolutely.
I'll even say this just from my own vantage point. I feel like even a Black man talking about pleasure too, that's very like like pleasure in a way where you're not degrading. Like you're not like seen as like this macho, like dominating, trying to like, you're just talking about pleasure for pleasure's sake, right? I feel like that's also something you don't see. Were there other challenges that you both face, maybe as a couple or as business owners, in just navigating this space? Because it's definitely not a space that I feel like people talk about getting into unless you're submersed in it, right?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Our colleagues have been very supportive. And for the most part, we haven't had like much of that kind of backlash
from within the industry.
Yeah.
But
I was just gonna say, but we're also at that point in our life and at that age where we just got no fucks left to give. We're like, this matters to us and it's important and I don't care what you have to say. So we're going to do it, but as far as like the business side of it, the challenges come from on our end. The censorship is ridiculous. Like it's
really
beyond crazy. Like we can't even share. I've tried to share an article to LinkedIn and LinkedIn like refused it. Just to share a business article.
Yep.
Twitter puts up like these what do you call it? Sensitive content over your stuff that's not even explicit just because you use certain words.
Like the word seductive, we'll get a content warning when we use.
I'm like, we're brand seduction. We're a brand agency. I can't talk about that. Like I can't talk about it in my language, my own language, because that word is taboo. That kind of stuff is ridiculous, which makes it super hard for businesses in this space to talk about their products and their services and to get them in front of people who need them because they're being suppressed, shadow banned, all that kind of stuff, like everywhere, even in the business space. Like I was saying, LinkedIn, I was sharing a business article that had nothing, like no explicit content. It wasn't even a pleasure-based site. It was a business
like Forbes or
news site. Yeah, I don't remember which one it was exactly. But it wouldn't let it because it was about sex toys or something like this. Sex toys selling sex toys.
And that's one of the things I think that we noticed too. And I know like after we started working with Cindy Gallup, we started building a deeper relationship with her. So she shared a lot of her experiences and insights she's learned over the years. And one of the things that like she had talked about was a lot of times when you're posting about anything sexuality based, people might really appreciate it, but people are much more hesitant to boost it or even associate themselves with it, especially on like LinkedIn or anywhere where their network is at, because they get apprehensive. They don't necessarily know what's going to happen if a friend sees them like an article and even if it's something that's like purely business, but it's about, like Sherri said, it could be sexual wellness. It could be toys. It could be entertainment or something much more like explicit, but either way, it doesn't matter how tame or not it is. People are much more hesitant if they're more mainstream. Once folks are totally like free and all that, those folks usually like they don't
care. They're like, you guys cool. Are like, listen, we're past this, and I think it comes with like an experience, right? Like, or you've gone through so much that it's like I already escaped this culture that I've been living in for my whole life. Like, y'all can't do anything else to me. It's kind of like that, right?
Exactly. What you gonna take from me? Like
exactly.
Like, I mean,
but we have that is a privilege that we have too, with it being our own business. We can kind of make those decisions. Like, are we going to take this risk? Yes, we are.
Yeah.
So
I mean, because that's one of the things that a lot of other folks don't have that privilege. I mean, look at Black Lives Matter. We were very overt and saying stuff way back in the early, 2010s or whenever things really started popping off. I remember we had a Twitter chat about it, but a lot of other folks didn't have that freedom at that time, because if you got a job and you got, family, spouse, kids, especially, a lot of times it's a lot more challenging because you can't afford to just lose a job. But because we work for ourselves, we have a lot more flexibility in what we can do. So we're always speaking on stuff like, ain't going to shut us up, not until we're dead. You know what I mean?
But I have a practical question then. Like, what advice would you give to that dream driver who like isn't there yet? Who wants to be at a place where they're like not afraid to take these risks, not afraid to talk about things that may be stigmatized? Like,
that's a dope question.
Because I want to know too, because there's some things I want to talk about that I feel like I censor myself a lot because it's like, how are people going to perceive me? But then I'm also asking myself, why do I care so much? But I think it's a reality. Like we all care in some way.
I think that's it. It's that self-reflection. You have to ask yourself, why do I care? What's the worst that's going to happen? What matters more to me? And those, like it's that self-reflection that kind of causes you to like pick a side, pick which matters more so that you lean into it. And I guess, like we were saying, it's a little bit different for us because we come from being super repressed and controlled to like getting out from under that, seeing the difference. We've lived the difference of being under so much control and then being able to use our voice. And we know what that feels like. So it's not so scary for us, but I know what it was like to be scared and petrified, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I would add to what you said too. I always look at people like, when I worry about being too far this way or this way, I look at the people who I see as like these monolithic, big ass figures. And then usually they're super like polarizing. From MLK, people want to act like he wasn't divisive. Dr. King was absolutely divisive. If you were a racist, you were not feeling him. Like I read some of the headlines from back in the day. They blamed him for all manner of stuff.
Yeah.
But we have the utmost respect for him and Miss Coretta. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then I look at, jump forward, look at Prince. I mean, Prince was very decidedly this way.
He was Jehovah Witness too. I saw him.
I want to believe he left. I
was hoping he was going to come back around.
I know. I
feel like he had to be one of those who want to I'm here for the community. Because I'm like, how are you doing all this stuff? And
the one thing it gave us comfort that he fell for it. Like, imagine how hard it must have been for people like us who were born into it to escape it.
We didn't have a
choice. He fell for it. This smart ass.
I can only imagine being born into like that. I'm not. Everyone needs something, and like it's not for everybody. And that's all.
I actively try to help people to get out of it. I try,
we still have family in it.
Yeah, but. No, but I mean, to go to what you were saying, I look at people like Prince, I even look at right now.
Quinta Brunson of Abbott Elementary. Have you guys heard of Abbott Elementary? He was Jehovah Witness too.
She was too. A lot of people in entertainment were. A lot of people in the sexual pleasure industry were come out of JW, come out of Mormonism, come out of Baptist, and they go into the pleasure space because they understand what repression looks like. And they want to go around and they want to turn around and give back, which is we're in good company. Some real good people. But yeah, I mean, if you're worried about speaking out, I look at people who were from Cardi B, who was very different at the point when she came in. That's how her fan base knew she was authentic and gravitated toward her. So speaking yourself is how you be super authentic. And then I do a lot of reading up on people from Asada Shakur and other people like that. And I study their life and some of the things they did. And most of the people who, the old quote, well-behaved women rarely make history, that quotes like that, it's the people who are willing to be mavericks and contrarian. Those are the people who are doing some shit.
You're going to alienate and piss off some people, but you're also going to attract a whole different type of person.
And it is easier said than done. And there's risk to it. That's one of the things I hear a lot of people speak, and they say all this stuff and it sounds real good, but they never talk about the risk. There's absolute risk. You could lose your job. You could lose clients. Mm-hmm. You could lose family and friends. There's always a risk to it. I think you got to ask yourself, is it worth the risk? And then also, how important is this thing to you? If it's core to who you are as an authentic human being or being authentic, then shouldn't you speak on it? And I think the more of us speak on stuff that's hard to speak on, the easier it's going to get. Unfortunately, I'm ashamed the first time Black Lives Matter came out, I remember how I responded, and it was not positive. And I look back and I cringe at myself how fucking ashamed I am of that. But it was all the Black people, saying it over and over. And, it was the Black people who checked me on like my initial response. And now I look back, I'm like, shut the fuck up, nigga.
But
like,
look,
how could you say
you were
shit like
able to
that?
take
You know what
that
I mean?
and like see it as a growth moment, right? And
Yeah,
like
mad
not be
growth.
you were ashamed of how you reacted, but like you didn't sit in that. You like
No.
you did something with it, right?
I listened to what they had to say and I evolved as a person for the better. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, speaking on hard things is usually what moves people forward. Because like the whole idea, power concedes nothing without you demanding it, without someone actively changing it. You can't just ask things to change. It takes people being strong enough saying it from the chest.
It was everybody sharing their experiences from leaving the JW organization to their experiences in the whole pleasure and sex space and their relationships and all that, the podcast, the YouTube videos, all of that stuff it impacted our life. Like, it helped us to see things clearly. It helped us to change our minds and our perspectives. So now we just want to like contribute. We want to share our story and help people the same way.
Exactly.
That's a good segue. I was going to ask, like, what's next for both of you guys? And like, what are you really excited about with what you guys are doing with the business and just personally, professionally?
Well, I know I'm super excited about all the stuff we're doing with underneath our FlyDuo brand. And like the virtual events, like the Sex Tech and Chill. We want to do a virtual event that's focused on sex tech, but make it pop culture focused and have two different tracks, an industry track for professionals and a consumer track for just regular folks to have fun. So it's kind of like a mashup of like Source Awards, BET Awards, and a professional conference.
Oh, wow. That's dope. I want to invite. Let me know when that stuff is
we absolutely. It'll be a virtual conference because that's kind of like our forte. And we want to do more in that space. I would love to partner with brands who want to partner with folks who want to like talk about sex positive messaging, whether it's products or media, what have you. We would love to do those kind of like partnerships because we want to do more in that space and streaming and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I want to do something with Catch Cod. That's like a streaming app or HBO app. I mean, shoot, if someone's listening and they're interested, I would love to hear it because
you got to make it to Hollywood, right? Remember what your teacher said. So you never know. Like, I'm a real big thing. Like, life comes back to us in so many ways. So
yes.
You never know. Sherri might be doing hair in Reuben's, next production.
Well, she braids my hair up. And
does
my two strands and everything.
So listen, like, you never know. You never know. All right. So last question, guys. It's funny because I had a whole notebook of stuff and I really looked out at it once. I'm gonna just close this. I'm gonna have this off. This is gonna be an off the cuff. Actually, no. Let's flip it because I've been asking this. Like, do you guys have a question for me? Is there something that like you think it would be interesting to hear my perspective on as like, we close out this interview, and then I'll ask your last question.
Okay. Well, I'll let you go first because I know I talk.
Oh, go ahead. I have to think about it.
How has I'm sure you've noticed like the kind of like burgeoning market of people talking about sexuality and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. How has that resonated for you? What has been like the way that you've felt when you've watched all of this changing, and what's your take on it? I'm very interested.
So I feel like I'm one of those, like, how people who engage and like will like it but like won't share it. I feel like I'm one of those people where these are things that I'm interested in. I find that the conversations are like very like not only entertaining but educational. Like someone who I love is like, I don't know if you follow her, Glamazon Tayomi.
Yep.
Have you ever heard of her?
Yep.
Like I just love her stuff because I see like myself in her. I'm like, I wish I could have like that just embodiment of a person who just doesn't seem to care and is so in tune with herself. So I see that content as like very inspiring. But then I also feel like there's a part of, I'm going to say it's from a podcast space, maybe one specific podcast where I feel like because they're guys talking about this stuff, it's like more accepted. But when the women talk about the same things that they're talking about, you see like the comments, oh, you shouldn't be saying things like that. Or like, so I think there's still so much more to be done.
Absolutely.
But I'm like, I don't want to be roasted if I go in and talk about, you know, this kind of stuff, or I don't want to be like stigmatized. But personally, I feel like if you know me personally, you know, like Raina's out there, like she, you know, she's out there, but I don't think that I've yet put that out as part of my personal brand. So it's a part of me where I feel like I just like wish I could, like I could, but I'm just nervous and scared. But I see that content as being stuff that like most people can resonate with it, but not everyone's going to like engage publicly. And that's the thing.
Yep.
Most people can relate, but not everyone's gonna act like they can relate. So I like it. I like learning new things. I want to see more of it, especially as a woman of color. And just like there's this one podcast I love. It's about moms. Oh my gosh. It's like these two women and their moms, and they just talk about like crazy stuff, but I forgot the name of it. But like I also feel like that stuff that like gets views too sometimes, where I'm like, am I just too straight, like laced? Am I like not talking about stuff that people actually want to talk about? I don't know. So it's, I feel a way like, what are the real life things that most people want to talk about that we aren't talking about? And I just love how people in the space who are doing it unapologetically. And that's what inspires me. So that's the short story to the long story.
I think that's really dope.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the same for us. I think that we chose we go back and forth all the time. What do we talk about? What do we not? What do we share? What do we hold back? Because it's our relationship. And we just figured, like we said, we want to share our experience because it's what we know. And that's where we feel like we can contribute the most. And that's where we've benefited from other people sharing their experiences. We're not sex educators. We're not like selling pleasure products and all those kind of things. So our experience in the space is our own journey and what we've been through. And like to the point of almost breaking up, despite being absolute best friends, soulmates, and coming out on the other side and like just experiencing an entirely different life. That's what we have to share. And we still struggle to figure out how much to tell and like what's too personal, and still dealing with our own like shame of like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I thought that, like, you know, so it's a journey. It's a lot because our culture shies away from it all so much. We're looking to each other for like, what's okay to talk about, what's too much, what, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that through that, it's making us more bold. By us pushing ourselves, we're getting more and more comfortable and more bold. I mean, did you think like 2 years ago we'd be ambassadors for Erica Luss Porn Conversation Organization? Like,
I love her videos.
literally.
I love her work, by the way. It's just so beautiful. And it's like making you realize, like when you see porn, like it doesn't have to just be this like
exactly.
It's like it can be cinematic. It can be like, that's what I like about her stuff.
Yeah.
We actually had a great conversation with one of her directors. She's the one who made the movie
All Eyes on Me.
All Eyes on Me. I think it's the one where it looks like an editorial shot for like a fashion magazine that's on Erica Luss' site. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. It's so beautifully shot.
And I like film like that. I like the creative behind it. So seeing stuff shot
that's why we like it's porn, but it's also like it's super creatively done. Not that porn can't be, but like it feeds all sides.
That's what resonates with us.
Yeah. Like I'm a huge fan. What's your favorite film on there, if you don't mind we asking?
I mean, I don't really know the names. I'm just like one of those like browsing really quick. Let me do this, but yeah, I don't know the names of anything.
Oh, okay, no.
I've seen her work, but I don't know like names. Okay, so I know we have to wind down. I hear my kid like getting restless upstairs, so I'm like, let me relieve his grandma. But I do have one last question. This is a one word answer. So who's the driver out of you guys? If you guys are going somewhere, who's driving? Okay. So Reuben, you're in the front seat of the car. Sherri, you're in the passenger seat, right? What's the title of the chapter that you guys are on? You know, the end of the movie where you're like riding into the sunset. What's the title what's the word that comes up as the movie fades to black?
Oh, what do they say when there's another one coming up? Yeah, to be continued. Like it's a series. It's like one of those Marvel flicks where like right now we're talking that we're those little clips after the credits. We're talking because there's there's like 5 more films coming. And like, if you watch this one, you're like, damn, but you're going to be soup for the next one. Like, shit, it's not coming out till 2024. Can't they speed it up? That's what it is. Exactly. That's what I want to say. To be continued. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think
Sherri,
that
what
was-
about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go with his. That sounds
Okay. And, you know, I want to make sure that we allow our listeners to connect with you guys. So make sure you tell all our dream drivers listening where they can connect with the FlyDuo online and learn more about what y'all are doing.
Okay. Well, the agency is FlyMediaProductions.com. And we're also on LinkedIn. And then Reuben and I are XO FlyDuo on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn and YouTube. And then Sex Tech, the letter N, chill on Instagram is where we're building, and we'll be posting about like the future events and stuff like that.
And if you want to go to one of our events, you can go to sextechandchill.com, and there's like a little registration form to be able to sign up, like pre-sign up. I forget the word, but for that. And then xoflyduo.com or...
Well, it's just a landing page.
Just a landing page.
It's going to take you right back. It's going to take you right back to YouTube. So
don't forget to peep us on the porn conversation too, FlyDuo.
Okay. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. Like, there's so much more that we could have talked about, but, you know, happy to just be able to share both of you guys' story, and hope you both had an amazing time as I did.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. This was dope. So dope.
All right, so that's the wrap for this episode of Dreams and Drive. I hope you enjoyed our guest's dream driving journey, as well as listening to their keys to success. If you love this episode, you know what to do. Please make sure that you are following us. We are at Dreams and Drive across social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So make sure you're sharing this episode, posting it to your Instagram stories, texting it to a friend, sharing on LinkedIn, wherever you are or online. Just pay this forward and share this with somebody. We really appreciate it. And all the sharing that you do helps us grow our community. If you want to join our email newsletter, The Keys, and get weekly updates delivered to your inbox, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. And lastly, if you know somebody who would be great for this show, or if you are someone who would be great for this show, please go to dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. I'm always accepting new guests. I'm always accepting new pitches. So I love to see those pitch requests coming in. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in the next episode. Bye, guys.